Don't touch that! Jake Lawson froze mid-reach, his hand hovering an inch from the sleek, glowing surface of the alien device. His colleague, Dr. Rachel Carter, stood behind him with a look that could melt steel. "Relax," Jake said, flashing his trademark grin. "It's not going to bite." "It's emitting low-level radiation and humming in a language we don't understand," Rachel snapped, arms crossed over her lab coat. "That's alien tech, not your toaster at home. One wrong move, and it might blow us all into orbit." Jake gave her a wink. "Or it might unlock the secrets of the universe." Sofia Rivera, sitting cross-legged nearby with a tablet in her lap, rolled her eyes. "Or it might just be an alien paperweight. Can you two not turn this into a science fair experiment?" The artifact sat in the center of their makeshift lab on Titan's surface, a cylindrical object about 3 feet tall, pulsing faintly with an otherworldly blue light. It had been unearthed by a mining crew 2 weeks ago, buried under layers of frozen methane. The crew had thought it was just another chunk of debris left behind by ancient meteors, until the thing turned on. "Whatever it is," Rachel said, gesturing to the pulsating artifact, "it's far more advanced than anything we've ever seen. The signals it's emitting are disrupting our sensors, and we've barely scratched the surface of what it can do. If you touch it, Jake, and something catastrophic happens, I'm not writing your eulogy." Jake smirked. "Noted." 10 minutes later, despite Rachel's warning, Jake was back at the artifact. His hands were gloved this time, though Rachel would have argued that didn't make it any better. "Just one little poke," he muttered to himself. The moment his finger tapped the device, the hum intensified. A thin beam of blue light shot out from the top, striking the ceiling of their lab. Sophia yelped and dropped her tablet, while Rachel bolted from her desk. "Jake!" Rachel shouted. "What the hell did you do?" "I just tested the surface tension," Jake offered weakly, backing away as the artifact continued to pulse. The beam of light swirled and expanded, forming a holographic projection in mid-air. Symbols, incomprehensible and alien, danced in the space above the artifact, their edges glowing faintly. "Is that language?" Sophia whispered, stepping closer despite herself. Rachel squinted at the symbols, her initial anger replaced by scientific curiosity. "It's a data stream. The device is trying to communicate." "Communicate?" Jake said. "With who?" The symbols twisted and shifted, and then, for the first time, a sound emerged from the artifact, a low, resonating hum that sent shivers down their spines. "I think it's talking to us," Rachel said, her voice barely above a whisper. For the next few hours, the team worked feverishly to decipher the symbols and sounds. Sophia, with her background in cryptography, took the lead, her fingers flying across her tablet as she analyzed the patterns. "It's not a direct language," she said finally, pushing a strand of dark hair out of her face. "It's more like instructions." "Instructions for what?" Jake asked. Sophia hesitated. "I think it's a blueprint, or at least part of one." Rachel leaned over her shoulder, studying the patterns on the screen. "A blueprint for what?" Sophia gave her a nervous glance. "Something big." Before Rachel could respond, the artifact hummed again, louder this time. The holographic symbols shifted into a 3-dimensional model, an intricate lattice of interconnected nodes, glowing faintly. Rachel's breath caught. "That's some kind of reactor." "Alien power source," Jake guessed. "Or a weapon," Rachel said darkly. Just as the team began piecing together the artifact's purpose, their lab's power flickered. Monitors blinked off and on, and the air filled with a faint, crackling static. "What's happening?" Sophia asked, her voice edged with panic. "It's interfacing with the base," Rachel realized, her fingers flying over her console. "The artifact, it's trying to connect to our systems." "Shouldn't we stop it?" Jake asked, already moving toward the main console. "No," Rachel snapped. "If we interrupt the process, it could fry every system we have, or worse, destroy the artifact." The artifact pulsed brighter, the hum intensifying until it was almost deafening. The lights in the lab dimmed, and the holographic projection expanded, engulfing the room in glowing patterns. And then, just as suddenly as it had started, the artifact went dark. The silence that followed was deafening. "What just happened?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling. Rachel stared at the now dormant artifact, her mind racing. "I think it uploaded something, or downloaded." "Downloaded what?" Jake asked. "I don't know," Rachel admitted. "But whatever it was, it just linked itself to everything on this base, and maybe beyond." The stillness in the lab was shattered by a piercing alarm, a shrill sound that made Rachel Carter flinch. Across the room, Jake Lawson was already at the console, typing furiously as lines of alien code scrolled across the screen. "What the hell did you do now?" Rachel snapped, her voice cutting through the noise. "I didn't touch anything," Jake shot back. "This thing's doing it on its own." Sofia Rivera sprinted in from the adjacent room, a tablet in her hands. "It's not just the lab. Whatever that thing just did, it's affecting the entire base. Communications are down and power's fluctuating." Rachel stared at the dormant artifact, its once glowing surface now a dull metallic grey. "It's like it sent something out." "Like what?" Jake asked. "A signal," Rachel said, her voice grim. "We just broadcast something, and I don't think it was local." The weight of her words hung in the air, and for the first time, none of them had a witty comeback. It didn't take long for the signal to get a response. Hours after the artifact had gone silent, the base's sensors picked up something unusual, an object, moving fast, approaching from deep space. "It's not a meteor," Sophia said, frowning at her screen. "Trajectory's too precise. Whatever it is, it's coming straight for us." "Can we get visuals?" Rachel asked, leaning over her console. Jake, seated at the base's main control station, tapped a few keys, and the display flickered to life. The image was grainy, but clear enough to make Rachel's stomach drop. The object wasn't just moving, it was adjusting its course. A sleek, silver craft, with an elongated body and glowing blue lights, was cutting through the darkness of space, heading directly for Titan. "That's an alien ship," Jake said, his voice low. "No kidding," Rachel muttered, her mind racing. The base's proximity alarms blared as the craft entered Titan's atmosphere, its descent precise and deliberate. By the time it landed on the surface, less than a mile from the base, Rachel had assembled the team in the central command room. "We need to assume they're hostile," Rachel said, pacing as Jake and Sophia watched her intently. "We have no idea who they are or what they want." "Hostile?" Jake said. "They haven't shot at us." "Yet," Rachel countered. Sophia, ever the pragmatist, raised a hand. "Or they could be here because of the signal we sent. If this is their tech, they might just want it back." Rachel paused, considering the possibility. "Fine, but we proceed cautiously. No heroics, no touching anything without my approval." Jake opened his mouth to retort, but one glare from Rachel shut him up. The alien craft's hatch opened slowly, releasing a hiss of pressurized air. Rachel, Jake, and Sophia stood at the base's entrance, their eyes fixed on the ship. A figure emerged, tall and imposing, its silhouette humanoid, but distinctly alien. Its skin was a shimmering silver, reflecting the dim light of Titan's surface, and its eyes glowed faintly blue. Two more figures followed, similarly sleek and metallic, moving with an unnerving grace. "Think they're friendly," Jake muttered. "Let's hope so," Rachel replied, stepping forward. The lead alien raised a hand, and a deep, resonant voice filled the air, not from its mouth, but through a small device on its chest. "You have activated a forbidden artifact." Rachel swallowed hard. "We didn't mean to. It was a mistake." The alien tilted its head, as if studying her. "A mistake? Your actions have triggered a galactic security breach." "Security breach?" Sophia asked, her curiosity overriding her fear. "The artifact is a restricted communication relay," the alien explained. "Its activation alerts all networks within its range." "And what does that mean for us?" Rachel asked cautiously. "It means," the alien said, its glowing eyes narrowing, "you have invited attention from entities far less diplomatic than us." Back in the lab, the team worked alongside the alien delegation, their every move watched closely. The aliens, who identified themselves as envoys of the Zareth Collective, were far more advanced than anything humanity had encountered. Their leader, introduced as Kyle, spent most of the time studying the artifact, its glowing interface now active again under their guidance. "It's not just a relay," Kyle explained, his voice calm but firm. "It is a key. To what? Even we do not know." "You don't know?" Jake asked, raising an eyebrow. Kyle's gaze turned icy. "It predates us. Artifacts like this are remnants of an ancient civilization, long gone. They are dangerous in the wrong hands." Jake smirked. "Good thing we're the right hands." Rachel shot him a glare. "What he means is, we understand the risks and are willing to cooperate." Kale's expression softened slightly. "Your willingness to explore is admirable, but your ignorance is dangerous. The signal you sent, it was not a message. It was a beacon." Rachel's stomach dropped. "A beacon for what?" Kyle hesitated. "For those who would take it by force." The warning came too late. While the Zareth envoys worked to disable the artifact, the base's long-range sensors detected multiple incoming objects. Unlike the sleek Zareth craft, these were jagged, asymmetrical ships that radiated hostility. "They're here," Sophia said, her voice shaking. Rachel turned to Kale. "How long until you can shut it down?" Kale didn't look up from the artifact. "Not soon enough." The base shuddered as the first wave of ships entered Titan's atmosphere. Jake bolted to the console, pulling up the external cameras. The jagged ships loomed overhead, their weapon systems glowing ominously. "What do we do?" Sophia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Rachel clenched her fists. "We fight." Jake gave her a sideways glance. "With what? Harsh language and a wrench?" "No," Rachel said, her mind racing. "With their own tech." She turned to Kyle. "You said it's a key. Can we use it?" Kyle's eyes glowed brighter as he considered her words. "It is possible, but unpredictable." "Unpredictable is what humans do best," Rachel said. Kyle nodded slowly. "Very well. Let us see what your curiosity can accomplish." The base shook as another barrage from the hostile ships slammed into Titan's surface, sending clouds of methane ice and dust into the air. Rachel Carter gripped the edge of the console to steady herself, her eyes locked on Kale, the Zareth envoy, who worked feverishly at the artifact. "Kale, we're running out of time," Rachel shouted over the blaring alarms. The alien's hands, shimmering and precise, danced across the artifact's glowing surface. "This technology is temperamental. If I make one miscalculation, the device could overload, destroying everything within a 100-mile radius, including your base." "Well, that's encouraging," Jake Lawson muttered, checking a monitor that showed 3 enemy ships hovering ominously above them. Their weapons glowed brighter with each pass. "Jake, focus," Rachel barked. Sophia Rivera, seated at a nearby console, suddenly perked up. "Wait, if this thing really is a key, maybe it doesn't need to be perfect. What if it's designed to adapt to chaotic inputs?" Kyle paused, his glowing eyes narrowing as he processed her words. "That is plausible, but highly unorthodox." Rachel shot Sophia a look. "Unorthodox is what we do best. Jake, get over there and help him." Jake hesitated. "What am I supposed to do?" "Poke at it until it does something useful," Rachel snapped. Kale sighed, his metallic shoulders sagging. "Human methods defy logic, yet they persist." "Very well, assist me." Jake grinned, rolling up his sleeves. "Let's break some rules." As Jake and Kale worked together, the artifact began to glow brighter, its patterns shifting into chaotic, unpredictable shapes. The low hum that had accompanied its activation earlier grew louder, vibrating through the walls of the base. "What's happening?" Sophia asked, staring at her monitor. Kyle's voice was measured but tense. The artifact is syncing with your systems. It is creating a field, a barrier. Outside, the enemy ships fired another volley of energy blasts, but this time, the projectiles stopped mid-air, disintegrating into harmless particles. "It worked," Sophia exclaimed. Kyle frowned. "Not entirely. The barrier is unstable. If it collapses, the resulting energy release will vaporize this entire moon." Rachel groaned. "Of course it will. Jake, can you stabilize it?" Jake shrugged, hands busy adjusting the glowing patterns on the artifact. "Stabilize? Probably not, but I can make it do something else." "Something else?" Kyle asked, his voice tinged with both curiosity and alarm. Jake grinned. "Something loud." The artifact emitted a sudden, blinding pulse of light that spread outward, enveloping the base and the surrounding area. The hostile ships, caught in the wave, veered off course, their systems scrambling. "What did you do?" Rachel demanded. Jake held up his hands defensively. "I just hit the reset button." Kyle's gaze turned sharp. "That was not a reset. You sent out an adaptive signal, a disruption pulse. Their ship's technology will now consider this area hostile and restrict access." "Wait," Sophia said, her brow furrowing. "You mean we just turned their own tech against them?" Kyle nodded. "Precisely. Your chaotic input destabilized their systems, exploiting vulnerabilities in their over-reliance on precision." Rachel blinked. "You're saying Jake's guesswork just outsmarted an advanced alien fleet?" Jake grinned. "Don't act so surprised." Kyle tilted his head. "Your methods are unconventional, but effective. Perhaps I underestimated the value of your species' improvisational tendencies." Rachel smirked. "You wouldn't be the first." With the immediate threat neutralized, Kyle resumed his work on the artifact. This time, however, he allowed Jake and Sophia to assist, their chaotic ideas complementing his precise techniques. "It's opening," Kyle said suddenly, stepping back as the artifact's surface split apart, revealing an intricate network of glowing nodes and crystalline circuits. "What is that?" Rachel asked, leaning in. Kyle's voice dropped. "A fragment of the Nexus." Sophia's eyes widened. "The Nexus? You mean the thing you said predates your civilization?" Kyle nodded. "The Nexus is an ancient network, designed to link entire star systems. It was abandoned millennia ago, but fragments like this artifact remain. They are both powerful and dangerous." "And we just activated one," Jake said, whistling low. Rachel crossed her arms. "What's the worst-case scenario?" Kyle hesitated. "The Nexus was designed for communication and control. If improperly used, it could disrupt galactic infrastructure, or worse, draw the attention of those who seek to exploit its power." "You mean someone worse than those guys?" Jake asked, gesturing to the monitors showing the retreating ships. Kyle's silence was answer enough. The calm didn't last long. Sensors blared again, signaling the arrival of a much larger fleet, dozens of ships, each one bristling with weaponry far beyond anything humanity or the Zareth had encountered. "They must have tracked the pulse," Kyle said, his voice grim. "Can the artifact protect us again?" Rachel asked. Kyle shook his head. "The barrier was a temporary measure. Against this many ships, it would collapse instantly." "Then we use the artifact offensively," Rachel said, determination in her voice. Kyle blinked. "Offensively? That is, not its intended purpose." Rachel smirked. "Welcome to Earth, Kyle. We make do with what we've got." Jake was already at the artifact, his fingers flying across the glowing interface. "Sophia, get me a frequency analyzer. If this thing can send out pulses, maybe it can create something like, I don't know, an EMP but bigger." "Bigger?" Sophia echoed. "Jake, that could fry everything, including us." "Only if I mess up," Jake said with a grin. Sophia rolled her eyes. "Oh, great. We're doomed." As the enemy fleet approached, the artifact glowed brighter than ever, its energy building to a crescendo. Jake, Sophia, and Kyle worked in unison, their combined efforts creating an output that defied logic and precision. "Ready or not, here it comes," Jake shouted as he activated the pulse. The artifact released a massive wave of energy, rippling outward in all directions. The hostile ships, caught in the wave, flickered and went dark, their systems completely disabled. "It worked!" Sophia cried, her voice a mix of relief and disbelief. Kale stared at the artifact, his expression unreadable. "You used chaos to defeat order. An elegant paradox." Rachel clapped Jake on the back. "Not bad for a guy who just pokes at things." Jake grinned. "Told you curiosity gets results." The base was eerily quiet after the pulse, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the artifact as it dimmed to a soft glow. The monitors, which had been blaring alarms moments before, now showed only static. Jake leaned back against the wall, sweat dripping from his brow. "I'm not saying I deserve a medal, but you know, I just saved the day." Again. Sophia shot him a withering look. "You also almost blew us up. Twice." Kyle stood motionless by the artifact, his glowing eyes fixed on its faintly pulsating surface. The artifact has entered a dormant state. The energy it released was unprecedented. It will take time to recharge. Rachel crossed her arms, her expression grim. "How much time?" Kyle turned to face her. "Days, perhaps weeks. But that is not the most pressing concern." "What's more pressing than a fleet of disabled alien ships?" Sophia asked, frowning. Kyle hesitated, as if choosing his words carefully. "The signal you sent, it did not merely disable those ships. It broadcasted across multiple galactic frequencies. Others will have heard it." "Others?" Rachel asked. Kale's metallic shoulders straightened. "Entities far older and more dangerous than the ones you've encountered. The artifact's activation has drawn attention that even the Zareth fear." Jake let out a low whistle. "Great. So we're on every bad guy's radar now. Fantastic." Rachel's mind raced. They had only begun to scratch the surface of the artifact's potential, yet it was already proving to be a double-edged sword. "We need to figure out what else this thing can do, and fast." The days that followed were a blur of frantic activity. Kyle remained at the artifact, deciphering its complex systems with an intensity that bordered on obsession. Jake and Sophia provided human ingenuity where logic failed, their chaotic methods often yielding surprising results. "I have to admit," Kyle said one evening, as he adjusted the artifact's interface, "your species' unconventional approach has merit." "Was that a compliment?" Jake asked, smirking. Kale's glowing eyes flickered. "An observation." Rachel, standing nearby, smirked. "Don't let it go to your head, Jake." Sophia looked up from her tablet. "We've made progress, but we still don't understand the artifact's full capabilities. Kale, you mentioned this was part of something bigger. The Nexus, right?" Kale nodded. The Nexus was a network designed to connect entire civilizations. It was abandoned because its creators realized it could also destroy them. The artifact is a fragment of that network, capable of immense power, but limited in scope. If fully activated, it could link systems across the galaxy, or destabilize them. Jake raised an eyebrow. "So it's a galaxy-wide on-off switch?" Kyle's tone darkened. "A crude analogy, but not inaccurate." The peace didn't last. A week after the pulse, the base's sensors picked up another incoming signal, this one far stronger and more ominous. "What is that?" Rachel demanded, staring at the chaotic waves on the monitor. Kale's metallic form stiffened. A response. From them. Sophia frowned. "Them who?" "The Keepers," Kale said, his voice grim. "Ancient entities tasked with guarding the remnants of the Nexus. They consider any activation of its technology a threat, and they do not negotiate." Rachel's stomach sank. "How long until they get here?" "Hours," Kyle replied. Jake looked around the room. "Okay, so what's the plan? We can't just sit here and wait to get vaporized." Kale's glowing eyes met Rachel's. "The only chance you have is to fully activate the artifact. Its power may be the only thing capable of repelling them." Rachel hesitated. And if we fail? Cale's silence spoke volumes. The artifact glowed brighter than ever as the team worked furiously to unlock its full potential. The room was bathed in shifting patterns of light, the air thick with tension. "Jake, increase the output on the third node," Rachel ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos. "I'm on it," Jake replied, his hands moving quickly over the controls. Sophia studied the holographic projections with a frown. "This sequence doesn't make sense. It's too erratic. If we follow it, we could overload the system." "We don't have a choice," Rachel said. "Kyle, can you stabilize it?" Kyle's hands moved deftly across the artifact's interface. "Stabilization is possible, but it will take time. Time we do not have." "Then we risk it," Rachel said firmly. The artifact emitted a deep hum, its energy building to a crescendo. The holographic projections shifted into a massive, interconnected web of light, its patterns too complex for any of them to comprehend. "It's ready," Kyle said. "But once activated, it cannot be undone." Rachel nodded. "Do it." The keepers arrived in a massive, otherworldly vessel that dwarfed anything the team had seen before. Its surface pulsed with a strange, organic glow, and its presence seemed to warp the very fabric of space around it. The artifact, now fully activated, emitted a blinding pulse of light that enveloped the base and extended into the sky. The keeper's ship halted, its glowing surface rippling as if in response. "What's happening?" Sophia asked, shielding her eyes. Cale's voice was calm, but tense. "The artifact is communicating with them. It is asserting its dominance." "Dominance?" Jake repeated. "What does that mean?" "It means," Cale said, "that they cannot destroy us without destroying themselves." The keeper's ship pulsed once more, then slowly retreated, its massive form disappearing into the void. "They're leaving?" Rachel asked, barely able to believe it. Kyle nodded. "For now." With the immediate threat gone, the team finally had a moment to breathe. The artifact, its energy now stabilized, continued to pulse softly, its potential far from fully realized. "What happens now?" Sophia asked. Rachel looked at Kyle. "We learn, we adapt, and we figure out how to use this responsibly." Kyle's glowing eyes regarded her thoughtfully. "Your species has proven unexpected. Perhaps there is hope for the artifact's legacy after all." Jake grinned. "See? Told you curiosity pays off." Rachel rolled her eyes but couldn't help smiling. "Let's just hope it doesn't kill us next time." As the team prepared to embark on the next phase of their journey, the artifact glowed brighter, its secrets waiting to be unraveled. Humanity's insatiable curiosity had opened a door to the stars, and there was no turning back. The end.